the ego. And what is the ego? I call it the hidden projector, or the acronym I use is Edge God Out. So there's a book called A Course in Miracles, or ACIM. And in that book, the very first chapter, the very first thing it says is it's called the mad thought. And basically the mad thought is they believe that we are all part of God and we came from God, and God is one magnificent, huge, collective reality, entity, whatever you want to call it. And God had the ability to explore all possible experiences in this reality. And basically, a part of God all of a sudden decided, well, what if I wasn't God? And they were instant manifestors, and basically that part became separated. How do you become separated from an entity like God or whatever? Well, it's a fraction of consciousness and awareness, and it basically said, or it allied, I guess, with what we'll call the ego, a part of us, our brain, our mind, or our human facet, to basically step into what we call duality. So no longer part of God, separated, and living an experience separated from God, without God's source powers, without abilities. And to be able to do that, it basically had to tell us that we did something wrong. We wronged God. We were bad. We have to be separated from God. He's mad at us. So we all live under this premise to live in a duality experience, to live in a human body, to come here in this time and place and no longer be part of the collective God, but have a singular experience as a human. We've been taught that we're only human, but we're actually God still. We just don't believe it, and we've been taught that we're not. So basically, we are running in this experience of duality. Well, that's been happening for a long time, and we've been looped in a whole bunch of programs and karma and other stuff that's not serving anyone. And we're at the point that humanity has to now step out of, because the collective experience has given all it can to people. It's starting to get pretty dark, pretty gritty, pretty ugly in people that have completely lost themselves in their experience. And darkness has been playing a game in that, and darkness and light are balanced. And I'm not saying one's bad or one's good or whatever, but there's a lot of dark been going on, so there has to be balance restored. So people are now going through experiences of being brought to their light. Now, light can be considered light like the sun, or being good or whatever, or you can say it's just truth. People are being brought to truth, and they're being forced into responsibility for their actions, for their darkness, for their downfalls, for their sadness, for whatever. And basically we're being pushed because our egos got really good at defending us. So I don't know how many people can notice it, but there's a voice inside my head. It's my ego, and I was pretty relaxed with it. I don't think I had an ego where I was taking money from people or forcing people or whatever, but we all had to have an ego to be separated from God. But I started to notice recently that my ego was not helping me. It was actually harming me. And we can say, oh, well, what the hell's going on? How can a part of ourselves harm ourselves? Well, how many times have relationships not worked out, or the story in your mental, your brain basically twisted into one of, okay, they are hurting me, or they're bad to me, or it's a pattern that's been happening from our parents, from our birth, etc. Well, the ego reinforces that. Have you ever had a thing where you believe something and you were really angry and you were sad and you made up this story in your head to explain something, but the person, you didn't even get a chance to talk to that person? I've had it many times, and many friendships were lost and other things. Well, I've learned over time, because some of those friendships came back and things helped themselves and improved. I discovered that what I thought and what I believed was actually not true. It was just a version of my story that the ego and that part of me was using to control me and say that relationships don't work out, all love hurts me, just stuff that I believed from my past because I had no better consciousness of it. Well, now we're awakening into new conscious. We're now into new awareness of who we are and what we are and what's going on. And we're getting forced to look at what our ego is doing to us and consider our ego as an unconscious protector. It's our subconscious mind. It's the immediate thing that jumps us into fight or flight. That can be, you can consider trauma that, while ego allies with our trauma and basically encourages us to think the worst, to constantly be in a choked up position of, I'm going to get hit from behind, I'm in my car, but that would be what whiplash is. So we can get into a situation where we're constantly not thinking, not being consciously aware, constantly being pulled by cortisol and fear into a point where the mind and the ego basically drives the boat. And when the mind and the ego basically drives the boat, it wants control. It will continue to force us into situations that will make us believe that we're a victim, we're having trouble or other things, or it will twist things and in your interpretation turn it into your trauma again. So it's like, oh, here's another date that went wrong and things aren't working out and blah, blah, blah. And this always happens. And well, that's your ego working. It's in your mind. It controls our mind. Our mind isn't actually supposed to drive. Our mind is basically supposed to be a tool. And we're running around letting this part of ourselves drive. And what I noticed is every time I'd get into a situation that was hard or made me feel shame or guilt or other things, it would take over and it would turn me into this sad and angry and frustrated person. And then I'd push people away and I didn't know why. And then I realized that there's a part of me that became a bit of a masochist. I basically thrived on things not working out. I became addicted to situations that constantly made me feel like the victim, and it wasn't true. And I'm starting to sit with it and I'm saying, this doesn't feel very good. What's going on? And then I started to realize that there was a part of me that was not in alignment with me awakening. It was scared shitless that if I awakened to the truth of what was going on, that it would lose control. Well, a lot of us are in that state right now. Our ego is basically acting up hugely. I spoke with a friend yesterday and they agreed to have this doctor's appointment. They went to the doctor's appointment and they weren't even sure they needed it. And they got in the parking lot and their guidance said, you're not going to the doctor's appointment. And then all this ego stuff came up and shame and guilt and stuff came up and basically tried to force her into going even though she didn't want to go. That happens to me all the time. I had a recent situation. It's like I have a chiropractor friend that I love dearly and I thought we were completely in alignment with or whatever. And then one day he miscommunicated and I ended up driving 40 minutes each way to go out and see him on a day that he wasn't actually available. And my ego is like, oh, there's something wrong with him. Oh, he's an asshole or whatever. And I rose above that and instead put a communication, say, well, I would never drive out for such a small thing or whatever. And can we agree that we both made a mistake here? And didn't bother to respond. My ego wanted to take that and say, oh, he's awful. He's this and that and that. And there's been since things that kind of reinforce that this is probably the right thing and we need our space and time or whatever. I don't hate him. I dislike the fact that nobody could be responsible for their part. But that's the ego as well. So then I'm seeing it in outcomes of relationships. I'm meeting people that I'm interested in and want to move forward with, or I'm trying to set up a business online and it's not working out, and every software and process I try and use didn't work out. Well, we're creating everything that we're creating in our reality. So some part of me is afraid of making money. The last time I had a business, it failed due to the CV and other things. And I'm sitting in this place where this thing is protecting me almost to death because it won't let relationships show up in my life. It won't let business show up. It's limiting my abundance. And my friend that had that experience with the doctor basically just said, I sit with it. I don't react to it. I just feel the emotion, feel the shame, feel the guilt, feel that this is not serving me, and just sit with it and breathe, and then it passes. It's like your ego having a fit and wanting to draw you into that fit energy. It's like a wounded child that's basically trying to force you into hurting yourself. So what do you do when this happens? Take a deep breath. Why is this so important to me? Why is this, turning out this way. You don't have to get into a big story, but just say, this isn't serving me. And then step away from it. Sit back and say, that didn't feel very good. Let's not do that again. And then the ego slowly loses power. The more you step out of reaction and step into awareness, into presence, into being grounded, the ego can't run you anymore. So I would suggest, if weird things are happening in your life and things are pushing you, and I thought I was insane. Even 2 days ago, I thought, geez, there must be something wrong with me, because there's some part of me that wants to hurt me. And it's not the part that's talking to you right now. It's not the part that's in my body most of the time, but it's a part that ran my body for a very long time, and it's used to control. It's used to having me be the puppet and run with all these stupid fears and the egoic program that we're living in, and the pattern and the program of society. You're not fitting in. You're not going to be a good boy, and all these kind of things. Well, none of those things make any difference to me anymore. So now I'm into the consciousness and less into the mind and into the suffering and into the game that we're playing in. And I'm just consciously choosing to be grounded and present and calm. And the ego can't play there. It's almost like lulls it to sleep. I don't know how else to describe it. Or you can consciously say, I release you, ego. This is no longer serving me. All these facets, all this mind chatter, all this bullshit is no longer serving me. So have a good day. Goodbye. It's a choice. We chose to align with the ego so we could have a human experience, and that was the price of coming here, and it came with karma and a whole bunch of other things. We're now transcending that. You can say transcending, like rising above, or you can say ending the trance of believing that that's required to continue here, because it's ended. You don't need it anymore. You are you, and you are a facet of God, and your facet of God is ready to step forth. For the first time in our human existence, we are going to be consciousness, awareness as our God creator in a human body. So you're going to have to end and deplete and resolve and clear and transcend every program, every belief, every thought, everything that's basically misled you and caused you to be in pain and suffering. You're going to end it right here and right now. That's how simple it is. And how simple it is, like I said, don't give it any power, don't feed it. We can call it part of our dark love or darkness, where we allied with it to have a human experience of density and low vibration so that we could know the difference between the two and come into balance of dark and light. Because anybody that's in their full power is in a mix of dark and light. They can be angry, they can be mad, they can hurt somebody, but they won't choose that. But to give your power to somebody else and say, hey, you're my boss, I got to do this, and I hate it, and then we hate ourselves, and we're basically just crunching ourselves all day long, and we don't even know why. So the ego was a phase that we went through to come into this human experience, and that phase is dying away. And it's just a part of the program, a part of the system that kept us separated. But if you can, just put your hand on your heart and say, I am, I am, I am, I am. And this is a practice I use. I sit down in the morning, I light a candle, I say, I am, I am, I am. I am light divine. I am love sublime. I am peace beyond time and space. I am, I am, I am. And I recite that 3 times to myself with a candle lit and hand on my heart. And then I sit and I grow my light body inside of my body and fill it out and then seal it with violet and golden light. Twice a day. And it basically moves me through whatever's going on. It allows me to stay grounded and centered. I do it right after I wake up, and I do it later in the afternoon. I don't have not so late as bedtime. Do it. You're transcending your ego. You're releasing that part of you that has kept you trapped and made you feel stuck. That's all the ego is. It's not some dark force or demonic entity or whatever. It's just an energy that's been put in place so that you could have a human experience. And that's all we're moving through right now, is returning to our human experience and loving ourselves. You're getting through it. You're doing amazing. We just went by 14:44 in the time, so I'm going to end it here. I love you all. I thank you for listening. And if you have any troubles, look me up. I'm Paul, handreader at awakeningyou.net. We'll talk. Thank you.